All right, so welcome everyone. Good to see you. Now today's topic is, and in general, this week's topic is letting go of stress or overcoming stress, working with suffering and stress. And so today I'm going to discuss 4 ways that help us to let go of stress, or 4 ways of dealing with suffering and stress. So the first one is obviously the most popular one. It's what we all already do most of the time, and it's called running, which means just simply running away from problems, running away from pain, running away from discomfort, running away from conflicts, and all these kind of things, right? That's what we're all really, really good at already. And nowadays we have so many options that help us to escape ourselves and our suffering and our stress, that it's just a background thing, really. We're constantly avoiding it. Right now, for example, if you notice your posture, there's a slow build-up of tension, slow build-up of discomfort over time, over every second. As every second passes, it gets a bit more uncomfortable, so at some point you will move. That's running. That's avoiding pain and discomfort. Now, for some people, when I describe that, they might feel a bit like, well, is it wrong to do that? No, it's not. That's just one way of avoiding stress, right? It's one way of avoiding suffering. It's a legit way. It's a correct way as well. Yes. If your technique that helps you to avoid suffering is a good technique, then you're not creating further suffering with that technique. However, it doesn't mean that the suffering ends. Avoiding suffering or running away from stress doesn't end the problem. Obviously, it just shifts it around, doesn't it? So yeah, well, you suffer maybe back at home. If you're from Germany like me, then maybe you're suffering in Germany, then you decide, okay, I'm going to move to Thailand. That doesn't solve the problem. Because the suffering that you've experienced in Germany wasn't outside of yourself, it was inside of yourself. And so if you go to another location, that suffering might temporarily, that specific Germany suffering might temporarily be disabled, but it will come back in different shapes and forms. It will not just stop. So this is the problem with avoiding suffering or running away from suffering. You don't really solve the problem. You just shift it around. Like our posture, for example, right? When your posture hurts, then you shift it, and it feels temporarily better. Only to feel a different sort of pain coming up a bit later. So shifting your posture is endless, is it? You never come to an end there. It's just problem, solution, problem, solution, problem, solution, problem, solution. It just doesn't stop. Yeah, that's the problem with running away. It doesn't solve the problem for good. Some techniques can be considered very clever. Running away, for example, let's say if you live in if you live surrounded by toxic people, the people that cause you a lot of trouble, people that have a lot of drama in their life, criminals, people that attract trouble, people that constantly keep you down. You might want to evolve, you might want to get better, but these people kind of keep you down on their level. They want to make sure that you don't evolve. They will give you hundreds and hundreds of reasons why you should not evolve, and why it's dangerous to evolve, and why whatever could happen if you do this. They just want to keep you back, they want to keep you small. They do this unconsciously, but if you keep surrounding yourself with such people, then, well, your life will be stuck. So it makes sense to avoid this problem. It makes sense to move elsewhere, to get out of this situation. You don't have to put up with a miserable environment. You can change that. You can avoid a miserable environment, and you can create a better one. Which is kind of almost like a bridge into the second way of dealing with suffering, actually, which is changing. So the first one is running away. It's just simply just shutting it down, stopping it. The second one is changing a problem. If you experience stress or suffering, then you can change it. You can make something good out of it. Let's say, for example, when you're sitting in meditation, you feel physical pain. Instead of just constantly shifting your posture with every little itch that you have, you stay quiet and calm instead, and use the pain to actually learn to become more patient and relaxed inside of yourself. So that when life hits you in the face at some point, you're quite relaxed about it. Because you have actively learned to relax under pressure. That's a great skill that you can cultivate in meditation practice, to remain quiet, to relax from the inside out, not from the outside in. It's quite difficult also, but it's very worthwhile. Another example might be a conflict that you have in your relationship. You might just run out of the house and say, that's it. That's running. Or you might face it and find a solution and work together through it. Right? So discussion can help. Positive exchange between two people can help to solve problems. You might see pollution and then you can run away from it, or you can solve it, and then there's many different ways of solving it. You can solve it on a very basic level. You can clean up the beach regularly. Does that solve the big problem of pollution? No, because it doesn't tackle the root. Then there are some people who are really, really clever. They create new materials that might dissolve in water, because it's kind of a thing, right? Human beings throw away stuff. And even if they don't throw away, sometimes the wind blows it away. It might not even be on purpose. Yes. Or you might tackle it at the root, maybe with education, proper education, training people, setting up more trash bins, having a clever kind of recycling system or whatever. There's so many ways of tackling these relatively superficial problems at the root. Right? Rather than kind of trying to just deal with the symptoms, which we do mostly, which is kind of like a bit of a flawed way. You don't get very far with dealing with the symptoms. I've recently seen this Thai advertising for some medicine which is supposed to kind of heal, I think it was, how's it called, heartburn? When you eat like crappy food and then you get heartburn, right? And so they had this guy who was in his apartment, and he had this party going on, and he was eating this huge bucket full of like KFC fried chicken wings or whatever, and then at some point he just held his belly and he went, oh, and then the doorbell rang. And so he goes to the door, answers the door, and there's this cartoon figure in front of the door just handing him a bunch of pills. Okay? And he's like, wow, happiness, and he eats one of those pills, and then totally relaxed. And you know what he does next? He goes right back to his bucket. And what kind of message does that give you? Like, hey, now you can hurt yourself, but you won't feel a thing. Isn't that great? Like, forget the root of the problem, which is eating crappy food. Like, we help you not to feel the effects while you're getting double the damage of the medicine messing with your system, plus the damage of the crappy food. And there's so many things like that in our societies. So many like solutions that look like solutions but are not really solutions. They're just a kind of avoidance tactics, or kind of removing the symptoms, but not the root of the problem. So very often we experience the same problem resurfacing again and again because we haven't dealt with it. We were just running from it. Yeah. So that would be a perfect example of running from it. You eat the pill, you don't feel a thing, you run from the pain. You're not really solving the problem, which would be the second stage. It's a bit more challenging to solve a problem. To avoid a problem is easy. To solve it more difficult. Like, let's say you have trouble with your posture in your meditation, you could solve that by gently starting to practice some yoga, but that means commitment. It means like actually getting out of your comfort zone, trying to find a way that works for you. It doesn't have to be yoga, it can be Pilates, it can be anything, gentle gymnastics or whatever. There's many things that you can do to improve your physical posture. So you can do them, but it's not so easy, and it's easier to just complain about the body being in pain or trying to avoid it altogether. Or let me sit on a chair, or let me lie down instead. That's okay, but it doesn't really solve the problem of you experiencing pain when you sit in a proper posture. So finding a good solution for problems that exist in your life is definitely a bit of a more creative, a better way to deal with stress and problems. Where does your stress come from? Why are you stressed? Where do you experience the stress? What is really causing the stress that you experience? You're going to have to sit down and think about it, maybe write it down, find a real solution to it. Number 3 is waiting. So running the first one, changing second one, waiting the third one. Sometimes really there's nothing you can do. You're just stuck. Life just puts you up the wall. You can't go left, you can't go right. There's no way going back or to the front. You can't escape the situation. You're kind of imprisoned by life, frozen in that moment. This is part of everyone's life. We all experience that from time to time. Some people more frequently, some people less frequently. Completely being stuck. There's nothing else you can do, just wait. Grit your teeth. Be patient. Bear with it. Learn the art of enduring hardship. Because the benefit of it is it shapes you as a person. It makes you stronger, and it makes you a more inspiring human being. It's people that went through intense hardship that have not only some of the best stories to share, but some of the most inspiring stories. They arise out of hardship. Like, let's say you have this very standard person that went through, I had a good upbringing, my family was always nice, then I went to school, I was always an A student, then I finished school, did university, was really good at it, then I did the job my father gave me, and I was really good at it until now, and nothing major happened. I met my wife, I'm married, we have 2 children. Nothing ever happened. No challenges, no problems, ever. It's a boring story. There's not really any inspiration in there. What makes a story interesting is challenges. Like, imagine you go to this cinematic movie and you sit down in the cinema and it's just 2 hours of a guy sitting on a bench watching the sunrise. There's no drama there. There's nothing going on. There's no problem to solve. It's not interesting. How does that help me? There's a part of our mind that constantly looks for, when we look at other people, what is there that could help me? What is there that could inspire me? And it's very inspiring to notice that there's a person that has dealt with far greater hardships than I, but they made it, and they came out of it so much more inspiring, and so much stronger, with so much more patience and kindness and forgiveness. But I never had the opportunity to really practice forgiveness. My whole life was just a big sleep until now. Some people spend their lifetime like this, just sleeping, because nothing wakes them up. So if life gets tough, it's like waking you up, it's calling you to action. Here it hurts, and it asks for your creativity, for your patience, your endurance, your kindness, your forgiveness. That's what pain does. It asks you to activate something that is deeper than just pleasure seeking. It makes you grow as a human being. So then you have to learn to bear with difficult situations. So sometimes there's no other way. You can't solve it. So many times I get emails like, I have such difficult family members. They just won't change. I've tried so many times to help them, but they just won't accept any help. That would be an example to just bear with it. Maybe they haven't asked you for help. Maybe you're trying to change them and that's what makes them upset. Maybe it's time to just leave things. Leave it. Leave other people alone. Let them be free. Let them make their own choices. And let them grow by themselves. And if they come to you and ask for help, great, help. But if nobody comes to you, wonderful. So you have time to help yourself more. Right? So there's different ways of approaching it. When it comes to waiting for an end of pain, well, it's a legit method, but sometimes it's just not the right one. Some people, they sit in meditation, and that's quite a popular thing actually. They sit in meditation and they let everything arise and pass. Have you heard that before? I just sit and thoughts come and go and feelings come and go and stuff comes and goes and I just watch it come and go. That's an example of where waiting turns into a standstill. You're not evolving anymore. You just let things come and go. There's no more evolution happening. You're not growing. And what that does to you over time, it creates more and more passivity. It creates a passive human being. And very often we do this out of fear, actually. I don't want to involve myself with things that I should be dealing with, so I let them come and go. And so spirituality becomes this amazing excuse for me not to do anything. I'm very spiritual. I'm aware of it. So I have no responsibility. I don't need to do anything. There is a very clever psychologist who coined this term. It's called spiritual bypassing. Google it. It's pretty interesting. And what lots of people do this. They don't want to really face themselves. They don't want to really face the issues at hand, so they become spiritual. And it's a wonderful technique to just avoid things. To just avoid things that otherwise would be quite painful, that would challenge you into a creative way of dealing with it. That's where waiting turns into a problem. Right? Similarly, the opposite would be where problem solving turns into a problem. The second one, right, changing into a solution, where that turns into, if that's all you ever do, constantly like just digging around in the world, shifting things around, optimizing everything around you and inside of you, but you're not letting go into awareness. That's the other extreme, which is also not fulfilling. It will leave you feel like you're constantly doing, but you're not getting anywhere really. And if you're just only resting in this kind of pseudo-awareness of just, I let everything come and go, then the element of activity is lacking, it's missing. And it's important as well. In our tradition, therefore, it's very common actually that a teacher would challenge you, or they would kind of ask you to challenge yourself. If you feel that you're very enlightened, that you're very spiritual, that you know your stuff, well, challenge it. Because as long as we're in our comfort zone, it's very easy to think that we're done. I just do only the things that make me comfortable. This is standstill. And you don't really know because you don't have a feedback. Many people avoid feedback. They don't go to medical checkups. They don't do things. They avoid feedback that might be uncomfortable, but could be very helpful for them. Right? I know very well because I tend to, for example, avoid medical checkups. I tend to avoid things like the dentist and so forth. It's like uncomfortable stuff. You don't want to do it. So you avoid it, but it would be good because it avoids long-term problems. And last but not least, the most difficult one is transcending suffering. So far we have really dealt with not doing anything, doing something, awaiting, avoiding. These are all like kind of schemes, scheming your way through life, trying to optimize life in some way. Now, this is not about doing anything anymore. This is about really seeing clearly what is just as it is, understanding it profoundly. Now that's pretty difficult actually, to practice that properly. That requires that you first really stabilize your mind. Like as the more deep your spiritual practice becomes, the more you start to see clearly how you make yourself suffer. And the more clearly you really see this, the more you can let go of it. But it requires this pure ability to actually see yourself, which is, and that's the most difficult thing I think for a human being, is to turn your eyes around, instead of complaining about the world around you, to see the complainer. That's very difficult. Biggest challenge. It's easy to complain. Yeah, I don't like these teachings, I don't like that, I don't like this. Can you see the one, however, that doesn't like, that's on edge, uncomfortable, unhappy, miserable, that me? Can you see that one? If you learn to see that one and to observe it properly, you get a real chance to actually release it, to leave it alone, to not touch it, to let it go, to disidentify from it. See, that's just something that I have learned to identify with. It is something that has been shaped by society. You might grow up around grumpy people, and everyone is grumpy all the time. And so you come to the meditation retreat, at some point in your life you've had enough, got a burnout, you decide to do the meditation retreat, you come to the meditation retreat and you wonder why you're so grumpy. Why am I always so grumpy? Because you've been shaped into a grumpy personality by the world around you. Now, can you leave that grumpiness be grumpiness? Just don't touch it anymore. Just recognize that this is not what I am. It is just a pattern that runs. That is transcending it. And so you want to look at this grumpiness as it arises, buzzes around in your mind and your being for a little while and then passes. Then sadness comes in and arises and it stays for a little while, it moves around in your body, in your mind, and then it passes. And throughout all this arising and passing, you are here to watch. So stuff comes and goes, but you are here all the time to see it come and go. If you do that often enough and long enough, you start to experience a shift from stuff happening to awareness. A shift from, I am so angry right now, to, oh, there is another bout of anger and it just passes through me without touching me, like a cloud passing through the sky without disturbing the sky. There's a shift. You're not feeling like I'm the little cloud trying to make my way through this vast infinite sky. You feel like I am that sky. And inside of that sky, clouds are happening. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to arise and pass. It's what they do. But those clouds are not my business. They're not who I am. They're just clouds. They just come and go. That means you're transcending. It's a shift. A shift from being entangled in, completely caught up in conditions, trained, learned habits of your brain and your body and your mind. If you're caught up in that stuff, you're not transcending it. You're imprisoned by it. You can be imprisoned by anger. You can be imprisoned by grief and guilt and shame and sadness. These are all little prisons. As soon as you think, I am angry, you're already imprisoned by anger. As soon as you say, I see anger, this is a big shift. And in the beginning, sure, your nose will be very close to the anger. You will still feel so close to the anger that the shift is not really visible. But over time and good practice, the distance between you and the anger becomes greater. And you can see more and more clearly, just another thing. That's not who I am. Just another condition passing by. Now many people say, well, does that make me an indifferent person? If I constantly let things go, but this is proper letting go. This is not avoidance or indifference, because that's what we are also letting go of, avoiding or indifference. It's just another thing happening, let it go too. Some people, they let go, I let it go, I let it go, I let it go, but they are still in the prison of indifference. They're looking out of their window, their little cell window, indifferently looking at things passing by. They're still imprisoned, they don't notice it. It's a very subtle prison, indifference. But you're still locked. You're still unable to move out of that one. Right? So we need to learn, this is the process why I say it's so difficult, because often we look from states at other things. We look from anger at the world. And the world appears a nasty place. We look from sadness at our spouse, and the spouse appears like, you look sad today. We look from whatever experience that we're having at this world, and that's the way we experience this world. In a way, you could really say that the way you experience the world is more like a mirror of what state you're entrapped in right now. Rather than, that's the way the world actually is. It's the way it appears to me right now because I'm in that particular state. So the way the world appears to you points to the state you're in. If you're constantly complaining, well, it points to that state you're in. If you're complaining to other people, what you're really doing is you're soul stripping. You're showing your guts to other people. Here, this is my internal state. That's how it looks like. Complaining, 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 complaining. We show ourselves to others constantly. What's your insides like? Is it happy, kind, giving, forgiving? Are you at ease? Are you really happy? And so it's this challenge is in the fourth state, is really to clearly see yourself as you actually are. Meaning that you recognize the difference between just passing states and yourself. If you want to call it like that. You can also say awareness and passing states. Not a colored awareness. Not an awareness colored by indifference, not an awareness colored by anger, not an awareness colored by whatever. It's like you think of a glass of water like this. If I put in a few drops of ink, the water becomes blue. And then you might mistake it for blue water. But really the water is always clear. It's blue color in the water. And it's easy to mistake them, easy to mix them up in our mind. There's blue ink and water mixed together. It's not blue water. When I was at the monastery, the first thing that I learned was debate, philosophical debate. And the thing was that my teacher was very precise with wording. And there was this example given that the grass is green. I said today, look at this beautiful green grass. And he would say, no, the color of the grass is green. And I was at the very beginning, he would just kind of like joke around with me a little bit. He would say, no, it's not that the grass is green, it's the color of the grass is green. And it kind of posed this question to me. I was, okay, the color of the grass is green, the sound of the grass is windy, the smell of the grass is grassy, the touch of the grass is soft. And what else? What do we still have? The taste of the grass is grassy, right? So we have these 5 senses. Now what's the grass? And it would be a logical conclusion to say either all of that or none of that. Yeah. It's a similar example with the forest I sometimes give it. You have a bunch of trees together, you call it a forest. But if you really look for the forest, you don't find it. It's just a word. There is no forest other than a word. It's a label. It's a mental thought. You cannot go into the forest and then kind of open it somehow and find the thing like, here is the forest thing. That's where it is. It's just a label, an imputation. That means transcending, and you truly understanding that, not on a philosophical level of abstractions and all that kind of stuff, not thinking about it, feeling it, living it. It makes you go beyond suffering as an effect. And that is, you can put it to the test. And when you're in pain next time, you feel as if it wasn't your pain. It's just another pain in this universe. There's a lot of pain in this universe. Why own any of it? That's how concrete that is. And it is as an experience as concrete as that. Your body hurts? Well, there's a lot of bodies hurting in the universe. Why identify with any of those bodies? That's why this is really difficult. This is not an easy kind of exercise where you say, oh, I get it, we're all one. Or, everything is empty, and it's not like that. It's not philosophy. It's not nice thinking. That has to arise beyond words, beyond thought, beyond abstractions in the mind, as a direct living, breathing experience of the end of stress, the end of fear, the end of tension, complete letting go. Doesn't mean you can transcend suffering a little bit. You can. If you see a little bit, you can transcend a little bit. If you see deeply, you can transcend it deeply. So in the beginning, we start to open our eyes, like in the morning, we open them a little bit, and you see in a fuzzy way, not clearly yet, but a little bit. You can make out like differences of light and shadow in the beginning, and then you slowly can see more and more details, depending on how trained your inner eye is, how clearly you can see. But any transcendence on that level is valid transcendence. And in the beginning it lasts only short. Like what you see, you let go, you're at ease. And then you go back into suffering and thinking and all that. Then you see again, you drop, you let go, you're at ease again. And you want to make that faster and faster. So until eventually you see, you let go, you see, you let go, you see, you let go, you see, you let go. Throughout the day, you see, you let go, clearly, 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 and then faster, faster, until the drops become a continuous flow of water. Your mindfulness is unbroken. That's the idea. That's what we practice for. So you continuously remain untouched by stress. You're at ease. No matter where you are, who you're with, or what is happening around you, you're essentially at ease. That doesn't mean your body is essentially at ease. It might not be. You might still get sick, still get trouble. The Buddha died by food poisoning. It's not that you let go and suddenly nothing bad happens to you anymore. Sure, bad things happen, but you're not suffering them anymore. You're not adding on suffering on top of it. You're at ease. Like for good. You're really at ease with anything. And if more people were at ease, the world would be a better place. The world is not a nice place in all regards because many people are not at ease. They suffer. And they show their suffering and carry it around with them as if it was important. That's why we suffer. And if we don't see that, nothing will change. If we don't let go of our own pain inside, the world will not change. Then you're just shifting around stuff. But the root problem is not solved, right? So these are the 4 ways of dealing with suffering and stress. The first one being running away, avoiding a problem. Legit, but questionable. The second one is changing problems into solutions, changing illness into medicine. The third one being waiting, patient, endurance. And the fourth one, transcending suffering. Yes. All 4 are proper ways of dealing with stress. And if you get skilled with higher levels of dealing with stress, then your life is accordingly more happy and more relaxed and at ease. If you're just dealing with stress on the level of avoidance only, then it will never really be fully restful. If you solve your problems, it's much better. And if you have the skill of waiting for problems to come to an end, then you're not overwhelmed by a problem. You're at ease. Okay, another problem. Just be patient. Just keep working through it. It's going to be fine. And fourth, if you have that one, you're okay either way. You can solve it, you cannot solve it, it's fine. You're fine. And that's great for others as well. Because you become a refuge. You become a medicine. Okay, so that's all that comes to mind for today about this topic.